It's Valentine's Day, and in celebration of Valentine's Day, I decided to make a wedding dress. But in true me fashion for Valentine's Day, I decided to make a wedding dress themed on a film that I enjoy. So I'm going to make the wedding dress from Ready or Not before the events of Ready or Not happen. That took me 7 minutes to get those words out. Let's just get to sewing, shall we? I've got the shirt. I don't know where it came from. I think my mum was doing the washing one day and she said, "Hey, does anyone know whose shirt this is?" And me and my brother were like, "Nope, it's not ours, and it won't be my dad's either." And my mum was like, "Huh, cool." And I was like, I'll take it if no one else wants it. And now it's mine. And now I'm going to make it into a dress. Okay, cool. Let's do this. I started by getting my shirt and cutting it into 2 squares. I then got one of the 2 pieces and cut that piece in half, leaving me with 1 front piece and 2 back pieces. I did cut the front piece to have a shape matching the one in my reference picture, but I didn't end up using it, so ignore that. I then got the 2 sleeves I just cut off and traced around a bra that I have, cutting out 2 cup shapes. I then pinned and sewed the cup pieces in place. I've got a top kind of thing, and I'm going to put it on Anna to see if it fits well, because at the moment I don't like how it looks when it's on me, just kind of plopped. So I'm going to do that onto her. I'm going to see how that works. At the moment it's kind of giving Madonna. I don't want it to give Madonna, I want it to give horror. I'm going to just play with this for a minute and see how I can make it sit on the bust correctly. I ended up laying the 2 cut pieces flat against the mannequin, using the excess fabric to mould it against the top of the bodice piece before sewing along the edge that I had flattened. I then got the 2 back pieces that I had made and attached them to the sides of the front piece, sewing them together as well. I now have netting. These are net curtains. Figure out how to make this into a top. I started by seam ripping the edge of the lace, knowing I would not need this for a net curtain anymore and therefore would not need this seam, folding it in half and lying down onto it, eyeballing where my torso hit it and cutting out 2 squares of fabric, slightly bigger than my front and back. This fits me relatively well. I just need to alter the back, because the back has really big panels, so I need to cut the panels. So then add a zip, but I think the zip and adding it to the panel, because she's got the lacing over the top, which will be the curtain for me. So what I am going to do is I'm going to basically need to fit this to my body type exactly, and then that means that I know how wide I need to make this, and then I'll be able to sew them together. I measured the lace around my torso, making sure it would fit around my body. Then I placed the bodice piece into the square of fabric, pinning it at the bottom, making sure it lay flat in the bust area before pinning and sewing in place. If I was to redo this dress, then I would probably make 3 panel pieces instead of just 1, similarly to how I did the bodice piece, and making 1 for the front and 2 for the back, because I think having the 1 single panel piece is what caused me to have problems later on. This clip is me trying to figure out how to add armholes into a garment that I did not allow armholes for. I put it on my mannequin, cut a star where the armhole was, and then I cut all the way up, and now I'm going to sew. I'm going to fold it where I cut it, and I'm going to sew along the top bit here. I did exactly what I said that I would, however my sewing machine had other ideas and kept clogging whilst I was trying to sew this material. So to say, I think I lost track of how many times that I had to take out clumps of thread from my sewing machine because it just kept clogging. But it's okay now. So I've made this bit. That's not the correct bit. I've made this bit. I'm going to make the sleeves because that's the only thing that I can next do. I'll then probably try and figure out how to attach these bits together with a zip.
Thankfully I had 2 neck curtains, so I used the one that I didn't use for the bodice piece, folded it in half and cut along that folded seam. I then folded these 2 sleeves, cutting a shape that I can best describe as a fancy headboard into one of the ends. I then took one of these sleeves and started to pin it into the armhole, making sure it was the correct way around before starting to sew it in. Due to reasons I mentioned earlier, the idea of getting the sleeve into the sewing machine and using this material, I just decided to hand sew it in place. Once I had put it in, I then pinned along the arm where my arm fits it, turning it inside out before pinning and sewing the length of the sleeve in place, trimming off any excess material before turning it right side out.
It's a new day, and I put this shirt on with this long shirt underneath, and I thought it looked really cute, and I kind of love it now. This wasn't part of it. I have made a bodice bit and one sleeve, so today's aim is to make at least the second sleeve and then add a zip and possibly start on the skirt. I've got this, which I got at a charity shop, and I'm going to use it because it's going to tell me how I can make a zip, an invisible zip. And by tell me, I mean I'm going to read the instructions and hope for the best when doing it and try and be as close to what they say. So zigzag the raw edges of the zip opening on both sides of the skirt back. Using contrast thread, work a line of tacking stitches down the seam line of each piece of fabric to use as guidelines. Open the zip and use a very cool iron to press the ridges of the coils over the front side of each tape. Let's get to actually sewing now and not just procrastinating me sewing. Let's make another sleeve, shall we? I know not how to do that.
I just did the exact same steps that I did on the other sleeve to this sleeve. I hand sewed it onto the bodice piece, turning it inside out and pinning where my arm would fit inside, sewing along the length of the sleeve before cutting off the excess fabric and then turning it right side out. Some of my fabric for the skirt part was due later that day, but I decided to start anyway, so I turned the bodice inside out, pinned the arms out of the way, got the tool, then started pinning it onto the bodice, starting with the 2 ends, finding the middle and pinning it in place before going around and pinning all the material to the top part.
So I'm hoping it's going to look more wedding dressy when I add the white underneath, rather than I don't even know what this is meant to look like at the moment.
Once I'd gotten the white fabric, I did the same thing I did with the tool, finding the 2 ends and pinning them in place, then the middle and pinning that to the bodice as well. Keeping my dress inside out, I placed it over the top of the tool, holding both the layers in place, pushing in a pin through both layers before removing the pin, holding up just the tool.
So, in the reference picture that I will show you here, she has, you can see the weird like ribbon around her waist. Now this, where it was the curtain, has a ribbon around the waist. I'm just about to sew it, and I don't know whether or not I should sew it to be the ribbon around her waist, or whether or not a nicer ribbon would be better. I think I might sew it as the ribbon around her waist, because I don't think it would do any harm to do that. And then I can always add, because I need to sew it anyway, so I can then always add another ribbon on top if needed. Cool.
I took my bodice part and the skirt part, sewing along the rim part of the bodice, connecting the 2 pieces together and making them become a dress. Being slow and careful as I knew this would be visible when I wear it, I tried going along the edge as best as I could so that it would lay flat against my body. I then got the longest zip that I could find and I attached it to the length of the back, starting from the top of the dress as far down as the zip would let me. Thankfully though, I decided to try it on before sewing it in place.
I spent ages pinning it, and it turns out there is a hole just there, which is very annoying. So I am going to unpin all of my beautiful hard work, cut it where that bit is, and then repin it all.
So I unpinned it, cut it where there was a hole, re-zipped it and sewed the 2 ends before pinning it in the garment. Due to the sudden change of zip, I had to alter the dress slightly. starting the zip lower in the back than the one in the movie and the one that I initially intended, sewing and pinning this in place, as well as sewing the skirt piece up fully. Due to the zip problem, I decided to go for an open back instead of a closed back. I know it's not accurate to the film, but it's the best I could do with the tools that I had. This also allowed me to make adjustments to the garment that I wouldn't have been able to if I had left it. This allowed me to tighten the arm on the right side and have it less baggy. I then placed my new dress onto my mannequin and put it at the highest setting it could go, trimming away the bottom to make it lay level to the skirt underneath. I then got a piece of scrap fabric that could lie comfortably around my neck, trimmed it so it was a little neater, and sewed that to the collar of my dress. Wow, you can tell I've been doing this for a while. Then I hand sewed some fixtures and buttons onto the back of it so that it could do up.